Hello and good evening. Welcome to Arsenal Analysed. I'm Jake. I hope everyone is doing well. This evening, I'm joined by two fantastic new guests on the channel from the Arsenal Analysed Discord. More about that a little later on. But they've joined me this evening to discuss the upcoming game between Arsenal and Brentford. Will we bounce back? Won't we? Plenty to discuss in today's show. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce today's guests. Kicking off with Sports 365, as you like to call yourself. How are you doing this evening, my friend?
Wow, pretty good. Looking forward to doing this.
Good man, good man. And by no means last, we have AJ. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Jake.
Brilliant. I'm glad that you could both join us this evening. And as I mentioned, we'll be talking about how you may have an opportunity to join myself and maybe the two gentlemen on screen in the future via the Arsenal Analysed Discord. But we'll kick off with a quick question around last week's game, because I do feel as though that may impact what happens with Arsenal moving forwards. We could look back on this game potentially and think that this was the start of a bad run, or are we going to show the right mentality and kick on? But Sports 365, what in your opinion, because everyone has very different opinions on this. Some people think it's just a little bump in the road and we're going to get over it, we're going to move on and it's going to be fine. Others are a little bit more concerned. What went wrong for you last week against Everton, and what can we do to change things in this upcoming game against Brentford?
Well, more than a few things didn't go well. I mean, first of all, I think Everton just seemed more motivated than us to win. They just seemed like they wanted it more. Which is definitely not typical from what we've seen from Arsenal this season. And I also think that Everton were kind of bullying Arsenal in terms of their physicality, which is also not something we really seen. In terms of that match, as it relates to the season as a whole, I don't think it will be the start of a bad run. Hopefully, I think that's always a tough game. Even when you look at Everton, see that they're in the relegation zone. Goodison Park is always a tough fixture, and especially Sean Dyche coming in. That new manager bounce is certainly a thing, as we saw in that game, and we also saw that I think a bit with Leeds drawing against Manchester United. Oh, that was kind of drop points for them, to be honest, but still.
Yeah.
So that's always a tough game every season, even if Everton are struggling, which seems to be a theme in recent years. But I don't know. I think that they'll be all right, and I think they'll probably just give Arsenal even more motivation, because everyone knows what's at stake. There's a slim lead at the top, and Manchester City probably aren't going to drop too many points this season, so I think we'll be even more motivated heading into this game, and obviously the really big one against Manchester City. But I think we'll feel it's even more motivation, to be honest.
Okay, so you don't sound too concerned, and it seems to be more of a kind of hiccup in the road as opposed to, red flags everywhere at this stage.
Yeah.
Then,
in my opinion,
I'm of a very similar opinion. Although there were a lot of individual bad performances on the day, many have spoken of a narrative in terms of new manager bounce and the pressure all being on Arsenal and Everton really not having anything to lose, with the players needing to kind of prove themselves to kind of move forward with this new manager. So we'll wait and see what that looks like come tomorrow. But AJ, what are your thoughts on the whole game? What was it? Are you concerned? What do we need to change?
Not overly concerned, if anything. Obviously, new manager bounce at home ground. They're seen a new manager coming quite quickly who has a pedigree in the position that they're in as well. And you kind of, Everton know what you're going to get with Sean Dyche. You're going to get much more of a less flair, more direct football. And I don't think it's a case of things went wrong for Arsenal. I just think nothing went right. We were relying on shots from distance. Zinchenko was off the pace as well. Odegaard, Thomas Partey, misplaced passes. Nothing really clicked, and they were able to capitalize on that. Even I also find that of all the players, Gabriel has to hold his head up high. He held his nerve and was able to do what he could, and the goal really came from a set piece. If anything, like that's probably a main takeaway of a positive, that it wasn't against we were under Kosh as well. But one thing I'll say about this season, unlike last season, whenever we dealt with a setback, we've responded really well. It seems like similar to, I guess, the last time we dropped points against Newcastle. Played it very similar, like doubling up on the wings, trying to limit the crosses coming in. They knew who the danger men were for us as well. And if you look at the heat map, you have to say that a lot of the play was actually coming down Saka's end as well, coming down the right, because a lot of people were singling out Martinelli not getting a lot of much into the game. But if you can see that they were just limiting that because of his pace is a threat to them. So they've done their homework, which I guess you have to credit.
Absolutely.
And I would say that one thing that Arteta's done well in is learning from these mistakes as well. He's adapted the players and prepared them as well. The other thing is, will other teams who play a similar manner have the same quality against us? Who can say? But that's my takeaway. I do feel that it's a blip. Look, we've lost 2 in the whole 20 games so far as well. You take that at the beginning of the season. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned.
You're spot on, especially the 2 games lost in 20. And I've had various conversations with Gooners who have unfortunately panicked. We do seem to have quite a reactionary fan base at times, but I've quite quickly pointed out that if you look back at any of the champions of the Premier League over the last 2 or 3 years, and going back even further than that in some cases, most champions have averaged 3 to 4 losses and still become champions. We're not there yet. So, 18 games to go. I'm not saying I want to lose another 1 or 2 games, but you kind of feel like you've got that in the bank potentially before you start having to hit that panic button, I suppose, moving forwards. And whilst we've got some big games coming up, we seem to have weathered most storms. And you make a fantastic point as well, AJ, that Arteta seems to learn very quickly off the back of these defeats in terms of it didn't feel like he had a plan B on Saturday. And what I mean by that is when you look at the subs that came on, they were like for like subs. They weren't the wing back, for example, in Tomiyasu. He's like for like, he's not a wing back that's going to get beyond Saka and provide,
something off the overlap.
Yeah, exactly. There were no system changes. There were no tactical changes. So, like you said, completely agree. I do feel as though Arteta will learn, because this is now the second time, the other game being Newcastle, where 2 teams have played very similar systems, 4 at the back, 5 in midfield, not much space between the lines, doubling up on the wingers with the centre midfield players tracking our number 8s. So there's a bit of a blueprint there, and I'm confident that Arteta will be able to get around it, but we'll have to wait and see. Coming straight back to you, AJ, on this one, form of late between Arsenal and Brentford. Brentford having arguably their best season in their history, only having been back in the top flight of English football a few years ago. They're in some great form, 3 wins in their last 5 and only 1 loss coming at the hands of West Ham. One of those wins was against Liverpool, the other against Bournemouth, and finally, and more recently, 3-0 against Southampton, who haven't been in exactly that great form of late. Arsenal coming off the back of 2 defeats, 1 in the cup, 1 in the league. So do you think form is going to have much of a role to play in this particular game?
It's hard to say until the 90 minutes are up, right? But one thing I would say is Brentford will be up for it.
Yes.
They're on a good run of form. Thomas Frank's got them playing some really good football. However, I'll say the back of our 2 last defeats, it's a home game.
Yeah,
you can imagine we weren't expecting a reaction. If you look at the players that we have, one thing that Arteta does, he gets them geared up. He plays on that mindset of vengeance, and I'm not to say expect that nice kick about with the boys speech again. But I'm sure he'll have a word to say, prove a point. You want to be champions, then you got to play like champions. You got to treat Brentford as you would treat any other team. Friends who live in the area as well, and they were saying to me, it's amazing that a small club, like, I guess, no disrespect to Brentford, but where they were just even 3 years ago compared to where they are now is amazing, and just shows how strong a team could be with the right talent management, right resources available to them. However, I doubt they're going to play in the style that we've been addressed with. Like, I don't think they're going to double up on the fullbacks because they can't leave themselves exposed. They like to play a bit more of a top press, relying on Ivan Toney, looking at the real threat from the wings, and then expecting something on the counter. Whereas to do that against Arsenal with the pitch size that we have, home crowd, it will be dangerous to try and expose yourself. So confident, but I won't call myself overconfident because stranger things have happened, right? Just Arsenal.
They have. Exactly, absolutely, and it's brought to the forefront here that Brentford have only lost 4 games all season, and although they are playing away from home, like you said, they're not going to set up in their usual style, most likely having to come and play at the Champions, which we've made an absolute fortress this year at the Emirates. So do expect changes, but they're going to be no pushovers. Coming to you next, Sports 365. As AJ alluded to just a moment ago, there is a little bit of history between these two clubs in such a short space of time, going back to that first game of their return to top flight football, which we lost. Arsenal had several players away due to COVID, illness, and God knows whatever else. But since then, there's been this sort of back and forth between players on social media. Arsenal have won the last 2 games in the Premier League, though, against them. So is there going to be a psychological edge to this? Is there going to be a little bit of history here that we have to be maybe concerned about? What are your thoughts on this particular side of things?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some history, obviously. Ivan Toney sent out that tweet after we played them for the first time after they came back up to the Premier League. And I think that definitely motivated us going into that next game, which we won 2-1. And then obviously this season had one of our best performances, honestly, completely dominated them in that 3-0 away win. So, yeah, I think they'll, might add some extra motivation for both sides in that. But to be honest, I think if there's a psychological edge, I think it's going to be for Arsenal. I mean, first of all, it's a home game, and we've seen what the atmosphere has been like. We've seen how well Arsenal played. Haven't lost a single Premier League game at home this season. I don't expect that to start now, even though Brentford are a good side, and Arsenal have already beaten them this season and beat them once last season as well. So I think we know what to expect. We know how they're going to play, and I think that especially if they play really aggressively as they tend to do, I think we'll be able to take advantage of that, be able to absorb that pressure, and then take advantage of that space that they create in behind. So I think that if there's going to be a psychological edge, I think it's going to be Arsenal and beat them twice in a row, and we know what to expect, and we know how to handle them. And if they do make some tactical changes, I think we'll do a better job of adapting and having a plan B. We need one.
Perfect. And coming back to you with the next question, they've only got 4 injuries at the moment, Brentford, and their main players, shall we say, the main threats. I won't name them because I don't want to influence any of you guys' decisions and comments on who those players might be. But when it comes to Brentford, who are the people that we should be looking out for, and why?
Well, I think if Tony is playing, obviously he's one of them. He's been in terrific form this season. I don't think he had the best season last season when Brentford just came up to the Premier League, but obviously, it's a big adjustment coming from the Championship to the Premier League. There's a significant difference in the quality between the teams and the players and everything. So it's a big adjustment. But this season he's been very good. I'd also say in terms of their danger men, I think Wepu, I think, has also been one of their better players as well. Certainly can create goals, can score goals, and certainly it's one that Arsenal have to keep an eye on. I think Norgaard's also had a pretty good season as well, and he did well. He scored against Arsenal last season, not this season. Obviously, we kept a clean sheet in that game. We kind of made that in that game a little bit nervy,
just a little.
Yeah, I think those are three. I mean, they have. Well, I think, and also I would say Ben Mee is also can be a danger from set pieces as well. Although I think we'll do a better job of defending the set pieces this time. Though we have conceded some goals from set pieces, I don't think that's going to be a trend that's continuing because we've been very good defensively.
We have
defending set pieces, so I don't think that's going to be a continuing issue. But yeah, I think those three
I agree
on their danger men.
I agree, especially with the set pieces as well. Sometimes, unfortunately, it takes something like what happened against Everton to highlight a potential issue moving forwards for them to go back to the changing ground, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen that much more often in future. AJ, I'm assuming that there'll probably be some similar names that you're concerned about. If Brentford are going to cause Arsenal problems on the day, which names concern you most? Which ones should we be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, Wepu and Tony are the ones for me. Tony is he's scoring for fun, and should he ever become unavailable, I think that's a huge loss for Brentford. But he's doing what he needs to do, and he seems to be a proper old school striker, like in the mold of Kanu. If you see, he uses his strength, but he's also quite quick as well with the pace. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll battle up against Saliba. I would say I think Saliba will be the one to keep an eye on for him. Mwepu as well is very quick, very got that. He's got that energy about them, that burst into him. And Ben Mee, his experience is something that I would say, similar to Norgaard, probably could battle off the whole team, even like an old Arsenal schoolboy like Josh Da Silva. I'm not sure if he's injured or he's back, but yeah, he was somebody who seems to fit in that slot for that Brentford team very well. They don't have standout players, but they work with a system. So yeah, I would easily agree with Sports 365 about definitely Tony and Mwepu, for my opinion.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why they are where they are in the league this year. I think Tony is top 3 in the top scorers charts this season, with only Haaland and Kane ahead of him. Brentford only have a handful of injuries: Pontus Jansson, Shandon Baptiste, Frank Onyeka, and Thomas Strak-Kosher. And I'm pretty sure I pronounced that last one terribly. So I do apologise if I've offended anyone with terrible pronunciations of players. Arsenal, on the other hand, Arteta gave an update today on the fitness of certain players. Mohamed Elneny is obviously out for the rest of the season, hence why we were, quite public about going for a midfield player in January. Reece Nelson isn't quite ready yet. Neither is Smith Rowe or Jesus, but they have returned to training, which is obviously good news for hopefully March. But this brings me on to some predictions for the game tomorrow. Starting with you, AJ, I'm going to bring up your predicted team and also your danger man for tomorrow. Talk us through why you've selected these players, why you've gone with this formation, and why your danger man is going to be your danger man on the day.
Yeah, I think when looking at the setup, it seems to be the style. Obviously, expect a bit more movement. Xhaka tends to play a bit more in an advanced role. nowadays, and Partey tends to thread the ball with Odegaard. A lot of talk between the changes was around Trossard and Tomiyasu. In the past couple of games, I think Ben White looks a bit off the pace, and Martinelli seems to be in need of a rest. I could probably see Ben White still making the squad. I'll be honest. Bar an injury, I don't think Arteta's the type of manager to dissuade himself from a change, and he seems to be more tactical. Like we've seen it early in the season when Tomiyasu came on for Tierney in the Liverpool game. And I think with Trossard, he prefers his option off the bench because he could play across the front line. However, I've gone with this one because I thought maybe like he'll probably see that this is. I know he's doing the whole we'll play each game by each game, and you know for good reason. But I think he's really thinking with 2 games in a week, is it really worth going all out at home and then expecting to come away with something later on? Any injuries? That's where I see things. Danger man for me is Bukayo Saka. I know he didn't have much of a great game in Everton, but then you look at how much they nullified him, doubling up on him. I could probably gone for easily Odegaard as well, but I think with Saka, he's going to be coming on. He's a player that tends to feed himself on hunger, like on anger as well. That if he has a bad game, he doubles up in training. He will double up on the pitch as well, and I can see him making a bit of a difference here.
Perfect. And before I come on to your lineup, Sports 365, a quick question for you, AJ, because we do have a game midweek. Man City, huge game in the grand scheme of things. First versus second, an opportunity for Arsenal to potentially widen that gap. And we will have a separate preview for that game next week. But my question here is, because there's 2 games in such a short space of time, and obviously this game being huge, because we've lost 2 on the bounce and we need to bounce back. And then also we've got the champions midweek. How much of that is potentially going to influence the lineup tomorrow? Are you seeing changes for that reason, or are you looking at it more from a kind of form point of view? Because games are coming thick and fast. And I know we've bought in January to kind of add depth to the squad, but a lot of these boys have played all season long.
Yeah. The way I see it, I think a combination of both. For me, Trossard is more down to resting Martinelli, and I think Tomiyasu is more so down, for form, if anything. And to say Ben White's been on bad form is a disservice to him, because I think he's been excellent for us. But one thing you'd expect, and again, it really depends on the way the game is swinging. Arteta likes to make his changes around the 60th to 70th minute. And that's obviously, allow warm downs as well. Probably the reason why we signed the players we bought. I do expect Jorginho to make an appearance as well, because you want to be able to. You want Partey in that Man City game. So 100%. I could see Jorginho making an appearance, a home debut for him. But otherwise, I think if anything, it'll be depending on the game how that turns for me.
Fair. And as I said, we'll certainly talk about the City game in a lot more detail at some stage next week on another show. But we have Sports 365's lineup here as well, and coincidentally, he's gone for the same starting 11 in a similar formation, but a different danger man this time. Before answering that last question that I gave AJ, talk us through your starting lineup and why you've decided to pick Odegaard as your danger man.
Well, in terms of the starting lineup, a lot of it kind of picks itself, to be honest.
Yes.
Obviously, Ramsdale's going to start in goal. Saliba and Gabriel have been excellent as the center back pairing. Zinchenko has been amazing, honestly, in whatever position he plays. He's technically left back, but he drifts all over the place. So who knows what position he plays, but regardless, he's been great. In terms of Tomiyasu at right back, I think Ben White, overall this season, he's been very good, but he's been a little off the pace the past couple of games.
Sure.
And I just think that it's best to just start Tomiyasu, because we can't afford a bad result against Brentford. So I think that's just how it has to be. I expect Ben White probably come on sometime in the second half, but I think Tomiyasu starting makes more sense. And like I said, the midfield pretty much picks itself with how well all of them have been playing. In terms of the front three, I picked Trossard ahead of Martinelli because Martinelli seems like he's maybe a bit tired and also hasn't had the best time in the for a little bit actually. I thought he was better against Manchester City in the cup, but still hasn't been quite at his best lately. So I think Trossard starts there on the left. And I think Martinelli could come on a little bit later after the Brentford defenders are already worn down and really make things tough for him later on in the game.
That's a good point, actually. That's a really good point.
Directness. And then, obviously Saka's been great and Nketiah's been in terrific form. So again,
he has.
The rest of that front three, like I said, it kind of picks itself. In terms of picking Odegaard as the danger man, he's having a terrific season.
Yes.
And he seems to be stepping up pretty much every game. I mean, he didn't have a great game against Everton, but pretty much no one did, to be honest. With exceptions. So I expect him to really create chances, and he's certainly been more willing to take shots on himself, which is good to see. And I think he has 8 or 9 goals already in the league this season. So he's certainly contributing a lot more in terms of goals. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the score sheet against Brentford. I'm expecting a really good performance from him, as we've seen in most games this season.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. He's been a leader. He really, really, really has. And same question that I posed to AJ just a moment ago. We've obviously got City midweek. There's not going to be much of a turnaround for rest for some of these guys. So, whatever that lineup is tomorrow, whether we're right or wrong, is that going to impact what we see tomorrow and Wednesday? What are your thoughts? Because, like I said, we've got to win tomorrow. We've got to bounce back, and we've also got to win against City to make a statement. And there's not many days between the two games. So what are your thoughts on this potential conundrum?
Yeah, I think the quick turnaround is one of the reasons why I would bring in Trossard to start, because I think Arteta probably want to start Martinelli on the left against Manchester City. Sure. So I think it makes sense to start Trossard, let him play for 60 or 70 minutes, and then bring on Martinelli a little bit later. And I suppose you could say the same thing for Ben White. That's more down to form, but I think it does make sense considering his recent form and obviously considering the importance of the Man City game to rest him for a bit and let him come on for 20 or so minutes later on in the game. So I think the lineup does the lineup I chose does consider the quick turnaround a bit, and I would also expect Jorginho probably come on for a bit, 20, 30 minutes, something like that. Probably depend how much time he gets. Probably depends on how the game's going. I think if it's I think if Arsenal are in control of the game, then I think he might come on a little bit earlier. And if that's not the case, then maybe a little bit later, try to change things up if necessary. But I expect we'll see him for a bit as well. But I think some of those changes make more sense, especially when you consider the Man City game next week.
Absolutely. And Arteta isn't someone that always tends to use all 5 subs, although he has them available to him. So like you said, depending on where we are in the game and how much we're in control could very much determine how many subs are used, because I think he would probably want to use all 5 with that game on the horizon. And to finish up today's show, I'm going to push you both for a score prediction, which I'm sure we can all laugh and joke about after the game on Discord. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about that just whilst I'll explain to everyone Discord very, very quickly. AJ and Sports365 have recently joined the Arsenal Analyze Discord with around about 30 other people. So if you are interested, pop a comment down below and you can get involved, and there'll be opportunities for you to, well, appear on shows just like this before each and every Arsenal game. That's the plan, at least. And it's absolutely free. I'm not looking to charge you anything. It's just a really nice, like-minded, laid-back, relaxed community, all talking Arsenal. And it'd be great to just increase that number and have even more people come on the show. AJ,
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming to you first. Sorry, score prediction for tomorrow. Who's going to score, and what is your score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-1. I think we've been a bit sloppy at the back recently, so I reckon that could happen. But I reckon 2-1 for me is going to be Saka and Nketiah, who's going to be our scorers. Lovely.
And then to finish up the show, Sports365 score prediction and a scorer.
Well, I'm going to go with one that's slightly more optimistic. I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal.
Okay.
I think we have been a little bit lacking defensively, but I think, considering that fact, I think Arteta will really try to shore things up. And I think, obviously, we've been very good defensively overall this season, so I think we will be able to keep a clean sheet. Although obviously Brentford have a lot of attacking power, but we did keep a clean sheet against them last time. Even before that, when we beat them 2-1, they weren't able to score until injury time. So they've certainly struggled to score against Arsenal the past couple of games. For scorers, I'm going to go with Saka and Odegaard.
Lovely. So a little bit of a difference there in the predictions, and as I said, I'm sure we'll all have a bit of banter about it in the Discord during and after the game. So as I said, if you are interested in joining, just let me know down in the comments below. But that is going to wrap today's show up. As I said, this is something I want to make a regular thing. I'm sure we'll see AJ and Sports365 on the channel again in the near future. I just wanted to thank you both for sparing some of your time this evening to talk Arsenal with me. But as I said, that's going to wrap today's show up. So for now, I'm JC, and we'll all catch you after the game on Saturday. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks, Jake.
No problem. Thank you both.
Thanks for inviting me on.